Hello, my name is Sam Bardaouil.
And I'm Till Fellrath.
And we're the curators of the exhibition Liberté, Rupture, War and Surrealism in Egypt, 1938 to 1948. We are here in Düsseldorf at the K20 in the middle of installing the exhibition. We still have about a week to go, and we're very excited to see it all coming together for the first time to tell the story of Surrealism in Egypt and its connection to Germany during the Second World War here in Düsseldorf in Germany.
What the map does in a really great way is also illustrate a bit the curatorial departure point of this exhibition, but I think of all of our projects that Sam and I have been curating together. And this is a firm belief that there really are no centers in the arts world, so to speak. You know, here we put Cairo in the center, and the city is actually its own center. So it was its own reference point that actually communicated with all parts of the world. You know, it's not just Paris. That was a center, and in fact what made Paris such a great city is exactly the fact that people came from all over the world, brought their own ideas, and this engagement that happened in the city that made it a reference point, but Cairo was just as much one of those reference points. So the exhibition also refutes a notion of a linear art history, first of all in time. There were many things happening in different parts of the world at the same time, so one thing does not build on another and then it carries forward. Things develop at the same time in multiple places in the world, and we have a wonderful example of this not told chapter of Surrealism in Egypt here.
So we're standing here in front of the very famous manifesto by which the group Liberté was founded on December 22nd, 1938. And what's fascinating about this manifesto is that the title was Long Live Degenerate Art, as we see on the wall behind us. Es lebe die entartete Kunst. I'm trying to speak in German, and basically it shows a very strong act of solidarity by the artists and writers of the Liberté movement in Cairo right before the outbreak of the war, with the artists that were being persecuted by the Nazis in Germany, by the fascists in Italy, even, you know, in Spain at the time with Franco and the whole civil war. And it's amazing when you read the manifesto and you can come across names, you know, of artists that are very, very known in Germany today, like Paul Klee, Max Ernst, you know, and how they were, George Gross, that the artists there were aware of these artists here in Germany and asking that they should be treated, you know, with justice, that they should be given the freedom to express themselves. And these are all artists that you see in the collection here in the K20.
And what's very exciting for us is actually the exhibition being here in the Kunstsammlung Nordrhein-Westfalen in particular. The collection is so strong on surrealism, and many of those artists that were actually defamed as degenerate by the National Socialists are exhibited here. So in a sense, the exhibition is a great complement to the permanent collection of the Kunstsammlung and actually sheds new light on it. So it gives it a new perspective from a very unexpected place, Cairo, and we can see what we can actually learn from this. And what's very exciting, I think, to see in this group of artists is that it was very, very cosmopolitan actually. So it was very multicultural, it was multi-ethnic, if you may say so. People had different religions. A lot of refugees came to Cairo during the Second World War even, because it remained a free city for the most part. So artists could actually work freely in the 40s in Cairo, while they were no longer able to do so in Germany, in Spain, in France, or in Italy, for example. So it made a very cosmopolitan mix, and refugees were coming to Cairo, when now what we see is actually almost the exact opposites. So while the show is maybe historical in a certain, to a certain extent, it's very, very timely, because it shows also how very quickly things can actually change in the matter of just 2 generations. And it's a good reminder actually never to take things for granted.
This is actually a great photo that was taken in the, you know, early to mid 40s in Cairo, and this is taken in one of the ateliers or one of the studios of the Art and Liberty group. So it's in a part of town that was on a hill where you have the old Mamluk quarter, so all these old houses and castles that were built, you know, around the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, leading up to the 19th century. And you see, for instance, the 2 young men at the end. This is Fuad Kamel and Ramses Yunan. The man on the floor with the cigarette is Kamel Telmisani. You see Hassan Telmisani, his brother. You see Inji Iflatun. He's an older artist who was not part of the group, Etienne Muriel, who used to teach at the art school in Cairo. So basically it's a very, very mixed group. They were all coming together, creating, experimenting, revolting in a sense, taking surrealism as a tool to effect a social revolution. This is a great painting that introduces the section and illustrates the sense of anxiety and fear and rising tension that was happening on the eve of the war. It was created by one of the very important artists of the time. His name is Mayo. He was Greek-Egyptian. There was a Greek community living in Egypt for centuries, since the founding of Alexandria in a sense, but also other cosmopolitan communities that were living in Cairo and Egypt at the time. And he actually studied in France in the 20s and came back in the early 30s to Cairo and Alexandria and became a prominent figure, a prominent artist there, illustrating a lot of the books and literature of the Surrealists, and also creating his own work. And this piece is a brilliant example of, an artist grappling with the sense of anxiety and fear and tension as people were talking about the war, as Nazis and the fascists were on the rise in Europe, but also, as we see in other sections of the exhibition, in Egypt as well.
Here we're standing again in the first section of the exhibition. We can see the effect that the war had on the art scene and the city of Cairo in particular. We are here in front of a painting by Sami Rafa. He is one of the very young artists in the group. This is a painting he finished when he was in his late teens. He was only 19. It was painted in 1945, and we can very clearly in this painting see the effect of the war. Cairo and Egypt were not directly on the front lines in the war, but throughout the war in Cairo, for example, a few 100,000 soldiers were stationed as part of the British Army. Cairo and Egypt were part of the British Empire at that time. However, some bombardments did not take place. There was a heavy bombardment of the city of Alexandria, and this is a direct reaction of it. And I think in this painting we can see very dark colors, we can see people fleeing, we can see cannons, we see a mythological owl that is carrying a cat here, we can see destruction, we can see burned wood. There's also a symbol of egg, so there is maybe some sort of hope or something of life. But overall we can see a very dark scene, and I think the impact of the war on the group and these artists was so powerful, or the danger of fascism coming onto Cairo and Egypt, that it was a group that was really trying to fight this from happening in Egypt.
Here, Liberté were using ancient Egypt, whether a temple in this case, or sometimes pharaonic heads, or the motif of the hands, to critique nationalism by taking these things out of their, expected context and playing with them in a subversive manner.
Yeah, I think this is also one of the most exciting maybe aspects of the story in the exhibition at large, that it actually was taking place in one of those cultures or one of those cities where you find a lot of those objects by origin. So that we're not taking out of context. So the meaning of actually looking at this is giving it a very different kind of meaning, a very different twist. This sort of hand that holds an ancient object here is also a very powerful gesture, that you present something, you showcase something in a particular way. But now we actually have this gesture being portrayed in Cairo, in Egypt, where you actually would find such objects and such temples and such visuals. So it gives it a very, very different take, and I think this makes this exhibition in particular a very, very exciting discovery for anyone that wants to learn about this period in a place that we don't know much about from this time, but also about surrealism at large.